Hello, my name's Madeleine and I'm from IJM Australia. Today I'm in our IJM office in Manila in the Philippines, and I have the privilege to be with Attorney Sam Inocencio, who's been with us for a very long time. Sam, you joined us in around 2001 and he was helping us with our commercial sexual exploitation of children program work. I've got with me the Locust Effect book that was written by IJM CEO, and I'd like to read out a little part about that to share with you about the initial work that Sam and his team were doing. The first person hired for the new project was Sam Inocencio, a local Filipino lawyer from IJM's office in Manila, who agreed to go to Cebu in southern the Philippines and lead the project's legal team. In 2007, Sam uprooted himself and his new bride to move to a brand new city to start the program from scratch and to help assemble a whole new team to take on the ugly problem of violence, corruption, and despair. Of those early days, Sam recalls, there were obstacles, but there was a great sense of possibility, a sense that something big was building, and a hope that something could be different for the Philippines. Sam, I'd love to hear from you about your experience running that program initially, maybe some of the challenges and just the incredible hope and transformation that we've seen.
But before that, thanks, Maddie, for inviting me. I remember exactly the conversation with my wife, my new wife back then, about uprooting ourselves in Manila and going to Cebu, which is an entirely new place for us. And she basically told me that, let's go because it is there is something special that God has truly prepared for us there, especially in your work with International Justice Mission. And that for me is truly obedience to the call. And so I heeded to the advice of my wife.
Yes, very good.
And it was an amazing experience for the both of us in the mission, but also just the incredible work of IJM in Cebu. At that time, the Project Lantern in Cebu was our first ever program designed to scientifically address this issue of trafficking of children in bars and streets by measuring the baseline of the prevalence of this crime from the very start of the project and determine whether the work of IGEM and our partners have actually impacted it by seeing a reduction at the very end. And so we work with our government partners there in Cebu at that time with the police and social workers and prosecutors, basically the local criminal justice system there. And we were just confronted with all these challenges.
Huge problems,
Huge problems. One, the issue was just overwhelming. Children were sold in streets just across police stations without those traffickers or facilitators being arrested. Prosecutors didn't know about the anti-trafficking law at that time. There was no conviction ever of a trafficking perpetrator in Cebu and in the whole central Philippines area. And there were no aftercare services available for children, especially for traffic victims. So we're just confronted with all those challenges.
So huge amount of injustice in this part of the world, and you were trying to tackle it with your team. What were some of the results? Can you share those with us?
Yeah. So, the results are incredible, but it truly came out, it was a result out of the collaboration and partnership that our team, worked with our partners there. It really started with, just walking alongside our partners, telling them about the crime itself, how it's actually being investigated, how it's going to be prosecuted, and just allowing them to see what success looks like,
Yeah.
in a case,
And to have that hope.
and have that hope that it is possible, that winning a case in a trafficking case is actually possible. So I think the journey there was just incredible with all the roadblocks and challenges. But I think what's incredible there is that the team, showed up like all the time, and did not leave our partners there, especially during those difficult times. And the results were incredible. So at the end of our project, 4 years or 5 years into the first phase of Project Lantern, we've seen a 72% reduction in the prevalence of children trafficked in bars and streets. First ever in the entire world in terms of seeing really this scientifically measured prevalence reduction of this type of crime.
Fantastic. What an incredible result to see that by building relationships with government partners, training them, and really trying to combat this injustice, we saw a huge success, and that really is a result of everyone working collaboratively together. And I can see from being in the Philippines over the last few days that it really is a collaborative work with police, with prosecutors, with aftercare specialists, with social workers. It is a complex way of dealing with a really difficult problem. And so after you were doing that work in Cebu, you saw a great increase in the reduction of that crime throughout the Philippines. We also worked in Manila and in Pampanga to continue to do that work. But over the years, we started seeing a new type of crime develop, and that was OSEC, the online sexual exploitation of children. So Sam, can you tell us a bit about that transition and what the early years were like when we were trying to combat this new prolific problem that has particularly increased during the COVID time?
I remember our Cebu team actually received all those earlier cases of online sexual exploitation of children. We started receiving those referrals from the community and other law enforcement agencies. And we realized that while it's kind of like similar to what we're trying to deal with, it's also very nuanced, this tech-enabled crime. And so we started handling one or two or a couple of those cases, and we realized that it was already the trend that's happening in the criminal activities against the children. And before we know it, we just saw an explosion of this type of cases. And so at that time, by around 2016, when we saw government leading and owning the work against trafficking of children in bars and streets, IJM made that decision to focus our projects against online sexual exploitation of children.
Right, okay. So we saw that there was a huge reduction in one type of crime, but that doesn't stop other crimes. And so how have you found some of the challenges and the needs recently? Like, what is your team facing? What are some things that we can, just understand about what you're doing now?
Well, online sexual exploitation of children is such a complex, crime. As I've said, it's a tech-enabled crime, especially live streaming of abuse of children.
Right.
And so our partners, while they were already, at some point became experts in prosecuting, investigating human trafficking, in its traditional forms, were faced with this, criminal activity that's quite nuanced. So one of the critical strategies that IJM is doing is to build the capacity of our partners, our police, investigators, social workers, to specifically address this crime by building their skills, their knowledge, even inviting experts from across the world to train them, and really to ensure that they're able to also investigate effectively and efficiently all the way through conviction. In the same manner that we also are building the capacities of our aftercare partners, because what we've seen in this type of cases that very young children are being victimized.
Sometimes babies or toddlers, it's horrific. Yeah.
Let's, talk about toddlers or infants
Yeah.
who are actually being exploited in unimaginable ways in
Yeah.
front of the camera.
Yeah.
And so these children are rescued or were rescued or removed. And so we need those specialized
Yeah.
care
Yeah.
for these children. And so we develop, together with the government, trauma-informed interventions, including foster and kinship care, to provide that kind of a family setup to support the healing and restoration of these children.
So important. I mean, it's so vital to see how our program work really does make a difference in the lives of others. We know that strengthening a justice system is really vital, and we really care deeply about that. But at the end of the day, we care about the one as well. We care about that child, and we want to help bring injustice. We want to stop injustice so that we can bring justice and freedom. And we're so thankful for people like you, Sam, and your incredible team here of experts that are really trying to work hard to fight this. And so I'd love to just wrap up by finding out about a couple of really exciting things that are coming up. So we've got a centre called the End OSEC Centre that are doing a Scale of Harm project. We've got a podcast coming out called Finding Ruby about one particular survivor. So Sam, I'd just love to know from you, what are you really looking forward to in the future about some of these activities and awareness raising and trainings that are coming forward?
No, I'm super excited about all these activities happening, the podcast, the trainings that are happening. I've been with IGEM for 20 years in January of next year.
I hope you're going to celebrate.
So yes, and I keep on telling people and also reminding myself that I'm still drawn to the one that you mentioned, right? I'm still drawn to the vision of rescuing and protecting the one. The one child, the one person in exploitation, abuse that needed rescue and restoration and protection. The one, but that one actually represents the many.
Yeah.
And so we're trying to create this model of protection, for the one and the many.
Yes.
And our hope truly is that through these various activities of capacity building, policy development, rescues, even those podcasts, to tell the amazing story of survivors who are now living a life of freedom, like true freedom and restoration, that we're able to create that mantle of protection for vulnerable children who will never experience abuse and exploitation in the first place.
Oh, it's so wonderful. The efforts that are happening at IJM in the Philippines are incredible. I feel so privileged to be here, and we're just so thankful for people like you that are working in the field, but also people like you that are supporting us. It is through your support, it is through your generosity that enables Sam to do his work and me to do my work. And for the aftercare specialists and the investigators and the social workers, everyone, it is through your support. So we're so thankful, and I look forward to bringing you another video interview with a staff member from our field office another time. Thanks.